weapons would be delivered to Ukraine, to the front lines, to help Ukraine to keep its war effort, to continue to deter Russia, to defend itself against illegal Russian aggression. Meanwhile, European officials in Europe, in Germany and in Hungary are discussing the possibility of renewing import of Russian gas to Europe as a part of a wider peace deal between Ukraine and Russia, according to the Financial Times. Financial Times reports that some officials are pro-Russian because they would like Russia to continue to import its oil and gas to Europe as a part of the peaceful settlement. They are confident that this strategy will deter Russia from attacking Ukraine again in the future. However, they are wrong, because Russian oil and gas will be used by Russian dictator Vladimir Putin to blackmail European Union, as it was used in the past, because European Union was so related to the Russian gas and was not independent in the energy sector. That's why this is a really bad idea. And also Eastern European countries say that it is madness to continue to import, to buy Russian oil and gas while Russia continues its illegal invasion of Ukraine. That's why this idea will not be supported by other European governments. The New York Times at the same time reports about the biggest disaster, military disaster of the North Korean army in Ukraine. So the North Koreans are fleeing out of the battlefield in the Kursk region. North Korean army has suffered tremendous losses on the ground in the Kursk region of Russia. As we know, 10,000 North Korean troops have been deployed to the Kursk region of Russia. However, they have been redeployed from the zone. They have retreated because of the enormous casualties. They don't know how to fight the war in the 21st century. They don't know how do drones look like, and that's why North Korean army has failed in Ukraine and has achieved nothing but high rate of casualties. On the other hand, Kim Jong-un doesn't care about his own people. That's why he will continue sending military personnel to Russia to fight against the Ukrainian soldiers, Ukrainian army, and that's why even more pressure would be needed to deter North Korean government from attacking Ukraine again and from sending additional military personnel to Russia. At the same time, the Secretary of State of the United States, Marco Rubio, says that Donald Trump is confident and serious about getting control over Greenland and Panama Canal. So Donald Trump would like Panama Canal to be American one because more Chinese companies own the facilities near the Panama Canal, and that's why Marco Rubio would like the United States to regain control over this Panama Canal, and there would be negotiations between the United States government and Panamanian government, and that's how the US will strengthen its position on the global stage by taking the control over Panama Canal. However, Donald Trump says that he is not interested in using military means. However, he does not exclude deploying troops to Panama Canal. However, at the same time, Donald Trump says that he could negotiate a better deal with Panama Canal, and this is another option which could be on the table. On the other hand, Trump is also serious about taking control over Greenland because of its strategic position on the global map, and that's why he can force NATO to increase military presence there. So NATO is ready to increase its military presence in Greenland as a part of a big global deal between Trump and NATO. NATO officials are discussing another option to increase its military presence in Greenland, to send more troops to Greenland from NATO countries and the United States. And that's how they can solve this problem with Trump and Greenland, by sending more military personnel and by deploying more troops to this area, to this island, to deter Russia, China and other adversaries around the globe, and to strengthen US position in the Greenland and on the global stage. And on the other hand of our conversation, in the end of our conversation, we will cover the situation in Syria. So Ahmad al-Shara has been declared as a president of Syria, according to Reuters. So Ahmad al-Shara has been declared as a president of Syria. He will stay in power until the general election take place. No one knows when the general election will take place. However, Ahmad al-Shara and his rebel groups have taken the full grip on power in Syria. Meanwhile, Russian delegation had interesting meeting between Russian side and Syrian side. There was a meeting between Russian and Syrian delegation, and Russians failed to negotiate complete military presence in Syria. As we know, Russia has retreated from 2 military bases in Syria, in Tartus and in Khmeimim. That's why Russia has failed to negotiate to preserve its military presence in Syria. Moreover, Russian government has demanded to continue its military presence there. However, Syrian rebels demanded from Russian side to pay compensation from all harm which was caused by the Russian army and to reconstruct Syrian government. However, during the negotiations, Russian side did not say that they did not acknowledge that there were mistakes which were made by the Russian side, and that's why they failed to negotiate to continue to stay in Syria from a military point of view, and that's why this is another Russia's disaster, military geopolitical failure to continue to stay in Syria, because they have lost 2 military bases there, in Tartus naval base and Syria in Khmeimim military base. That's all for today. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, stay with us on YouTube, and glory to Ukraine!